Hey everybody, first of all, welcome to my new home office. I'm going to try to decorate a little bit, but for now, here it is, kind of plain, but really happy to be finally moved in. This video is a bit overdue, mostly because of the length of my moving process, but we're going to talk about, in this video, Trump's re-election chances. Yes, the hot topic everybody wants to talk about right now, even though it's probably the least interesting and most predictable thing in politics. So with that, let's jump right in. So will Trump win in 2020? The answer is nobody knows, right? But the short answer, if you want to get into the discussion of it, is probably yes, he will. And most presidents win re-election. It's pretty much a given unless you screw it up. You have to mess it up really bad in order to get tossed out of office after one term. It's happened rarely, and usually when there's a major screw up or the president divides his own base against himself. So you really, as long as you stick to your base, as long as you hold them together, the opposition has a really hard time driving a message against the sitting president, and independents are not paying attention closely enough usually to make a real difference, and I expect that this time everybody will be paying attention, but that the Democrats will be so divided that it won't end up benefiting us. So I'll get more into some detail here. So right now, if you look at the Electoral College, Trump looks like the weakest general election candidate in recent memory, but that puts him in really good company. So remember, Obama was in a weak position for re-election in 2012, George W. Bush was in a weak position in 2004, and they both won. And also, if you'll notice, there is a trend line here. Presidents are getting weaker and weaker in their re-election over time, but they're still winning. And the reason why they're getting weaker, I think, is because they aren't successfully passing policies that directly impact and directly affect the bottom lines and the livelihoods of large majority of Americans. And Trump has really continued that trend. He hasn't done anything that directly impacts the lives of Americans. I think if you were to ask him what he's done, he'd probably spot a lot of garbage, and the most substantive thing he would say is the tax bill, but that really has not affected most people that much. It got some people some bonuses, quickly forgotten. It got some good press a while back, quickly forgotten. It turns out that tax cuts are not, corporate tax cuts are really not that great a stimulus, and they don't lead to create a huge bump in take-home pay for most people. So as a liberal, I have an opinion on that, but look what happened. Look what's happening right now. The economy is not getting better; it's getting weaker. And it's not going to help his re-election chances at all. And I don't think that he really ever planned that it would. I think Trump probably knows that corporate tax cuts are stupid, but he just went along with the GOP Congress because that's what they wanted to do. And he thought, oh, easy win, let's do it. But anyway, back to my original point, he hasn't actually done anything that affects real people. So I expect him to be in a weak position, just like Obama, just like George W. Bush. And if you go back and examine those re-election races, in 2004, George W. Bush did rely on a pretty significant message against Kerry to define Kerry, but he mainly won by successfully exploiting 9/11, which convinced enough voters to stick with him despite a really weak economy. Obama was a weaker general election candidate than George W. Bush. He was totally reliant on negative message against Mitt Romney, and without destroying Mitt's reputation, Obama would have lost easily. I was a part of the effort to discredit Mitt Romney and it was just too easy. Like, we had so much fun. I felt, even as a young person who didn't know everything about politics, I felt pretty confident the entire time we were running that race. Probably the same way that Trump people feel about this race right now, because they know they're going to be able to divide us. Just whoever they're going to be able to define whoever we put up there so easily, because they've got the bully pulpit. It's a really huge advantage, and it's a super fun one to use. Destroying your opponents is like the most fun part of being a political professional in some ways. So Trump is so deep in the hole, though, unless some unforeseen event happens in the next 2 years, like a war. The only way that he'll win is by completely savaging his opponent in a way we haven't seen in recent memory. And I'm sorry to say to my conservative friends, but since the Democratic Party's voter coalition now makes up a clear majority in the country, he'll have to do it by attacking from the left, not the right. And that's a reversal from where George W. Bush was in 2004. He was able to win even though he was attacking from the right, but that doesn't work anymore. The Democrats are too powerful. Luckily for Trump supporters, Trump is uniquely positioned to execute exactly that type of campaign, hitting from both the right and the left and dividing the Democrats. Think about how he won in 2016. He ran to the left of Hillary on trade, and he ran on a disgust with the corporate-dominated campaign finance system that is perpetuated by globalist puppeteers. It was really easy to pursue those lines of attack in 2016, and it'll be super easy for him to pursue them against whoever the Democrats nominate in 2020, unless it's Bernie Sanders, in which case he'll just go after Bernie on race, because Bernie is a populist like him. The way that Republicans win the populist argument against a populist leftist is by telling their voters that the Democrats just love black people too much. And that'll be his line of attack against Bernie if Bernie wins the nomination. So he's got a really, really good line of attack on any Democrat that we nominate, and the attacks are gonna come from the left. What he'll do to Bernie on race, he'll do exactly the same thing that Bernie supporters did to Hillary Democrats, but he'll do it too. You're focused too much on PC and identity politics. We'll say that, and that's very convincing to a lot of the populists who may be Bernie supporters. They'll be very dispirited, and they'll agree with Trump against their own guy, Bernie. Enough of them will stay home, and enough of the independents who the Bernie campaign would hope to win over through running to the left of everybody, Democrats and Republicans, will be dissuaded by the racial argument, both from a leftist frame and a right frame. So liberals, he's going to divide us. He's going to divide us. It's going to work. Get ready. Context though. So all that aside, I've just been displaying my opinions on how many advantages Trump has in this election and how he's likely to win. But I think the real storyline long term is just how weak Trump's victory is likely to be. Originally, when he was first getting sworn in, and I saw that he was able to run both to the right and to the left, I thought, and used both right and left wing frames in his election race. I thought that he was going to. Be able to remake politics. I thought that he was going to be able to completely change how people view their partisan affiliations. And I thought his popularity would grow over time, but in the end, he hasn't really accomplished a lot up to this point that impacts the lives of average Americans, as I said before. and he's given people no reason to change their allegiance or rethink their politics. And he's just another Republican president, normal, and that's I think a lot of Republicans would, or a lot of Trump supporters probably would not like to admit that, and a lot of never Trump Republicans probably wouldn't want to admit that either. But he's basically just more in the open rhetoric, pursuing exactly the same thing up to this point, which isn't a winning coalition long term for the Republicans. So, the bottom line here is that he's going to have to win by dividing and tearing down the Democrats, just like Obama did to the GOP in his reelection. And that's not a recipe for a presidency that irrevocably changes the trajectory of politics, as we Obama fans were forced to admit to ourselves. So, if Trump wins by dividing liberals instead of actively taking our base voters for himself, then it's basically an open admission that the liberals have already won on his part and on the part of everyone on the Republican side working in politics. So the future is really, really bright if you're a liberal like me, and we are very likely to be able to put in place at some point in the future most of our socialist dream policies, and re-electing Trump won't do a thing to stop it. So my advice to the conservatives is join the Liberal Party. We're going to win. We actually care about the lives and livelihoods of Americans like you. And the longer you wait to get in line, the longer the line will be when you have to get in at the back. So those are my thoughts. I think it probably is different than what most people are saying right now, but I feel pretty confident about saying all this. If you have any thoughts of your own and want to share them, please comment, and I will be looking to see who I can engage with in the comments. I'm going to try to get back into the swing of doing these more often, so if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe, and please be sure to hit the bell as well so you can get notifications. And I love making videos like this. I'm going to keep going on this, and looking forward to my next one. Thanks everybody. Bye.